of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we start with appointments. What all we have is
And Mr. Chairman, I wonder if just for one of the visitors' sake, if we would be able to just go out of order on agenda to allow the person under new business, the resident Sam Greenlaw, to be considered.
You guys okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Fine with me.
You go first. Okay. So I'll introduce Mr. Greenlaw. Mr. Greenlaw, we had a discussion earlier, or late last week, just to kind of go over some of the issues that he's found with his property. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Greenlaw to kind of explain some of the presentation and discussion points. Yeah.
Thank you. Good evening, folks.
Good
My
evening.
name is Sam Greenlaw. I live at 5 Curtis Court, Littleton, New Hampshire. Lived there for 14 years. My wife and I have spent a fair amount of our time, our retired time, helping restore some homes in the town of Littleton, New Hampshire. We've had some very good responses to the people that we sold our homes to. We're not just a living home, it's my wife and I do a lot of work to go in and rebuild homes. It might take us a year. And we've had very good success that way. And all occupants have responded in kind, letters and everything to the places they buy. We're in the process of doing that again on Crane Street. We purchased a piece of property up there and at 84. And we find that there's a question about the property lines. And when I was buying the property, and found out that in 87, the planning meeting submitted to the Registry of Deeds in January 2 of 1979, a document that shows the borders of that property. It spells them out in great detail. Now, I will submit to you that this document that you're putting in here has nothing to do with me. I saw it for the first time, and it means absolutely nothing. There's nothing about it that tells you a story about this property. That's something that was done after this document was filed at the Registry of Deeds by another planning stage 2 or something like that. Nothing to do with this property.
Yeah.
So it has to do with what I submitted to you folks. There is no other documentation in the Registry of Deeds that changes this property from what it, and I have title insurance that tells about that. So the question I have here, I don't know what this is for. This document. This is my document. And I think that's what we should be talking about. That's something of another era, not
Okay.
here.
Why are we here at the selectmen's meeting? It sounds like a
Because-
property dispute.
Because the property lines are in what you've paid for a road up
Okay.
there. Yes.
So, I mean,
It's my property.
yeah. So what Mr. Greenlaw is saying is that the roadway, the Crane Street roadway, encroaches onto his deeded property.
Okay.
What we found, we've just done a preliminary review of it. What we found is that there was the map that Mr. Greenlaw has, a survey that's been recorded in January 2nd, 1979, or June 2nd. And it established the boundary line of his property. A deed was recorded later. The deed didn't lay out measurements. It said basically that this parcel exists as laid out on that map. So then, the map and the deed are together. And so when we met earlier this week, one of the things that we started the process of was to just review this parcel through legal title search, whatever we need to, just to establish, that this is the correct and most up-to-date information. And tell me if I'm summing up anything incorrectly.
No, that's
Okay. And
yes.
Mr. Greenlaw has gone through some technical work and in the process, some legal work. And what he's doing is suggesting that if the title has an issue, or if the town has an encroachment issue, then what he's doing is offering a solution. He's saying that there's a certain amount of cost that's in the legal proceedings and all that sort of thing, plus some cash for his consideration of a transfer, a lot line adjustment. So I believe what Mr. Greenlaw was considering was to look at, if there was such an issue, does the board want to move forward with it, looking at a resolution with Mr. Greenlaw for a lot line adjustment. And then, did I say that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have made it clear that I would like to work with the town to resolve this. I'm assuming what I'm putting forth is true.
Sure.
Okay? And there's been nobody submit any other materials that change that. This document is the only document in play. Okay? Property was purchased for that, title insurance was purchased for that, and there's nothing else in the registry of deeds to change that. So,
Okay, but we're in the process right now of just confirming
reviewing
that there is in fact either an
encroachment.
encroachment issue or something like that.
Right, and I think that one of the things that we've briefly discussed, if we find that there is an encroachment issue, the amount of money that's needed, we would likely have to go through town meeting to be able to raise that kind of cash. So,
and I want to address that part. Let's assume that everything I've said is true. I have outlined in the road out there, and I submitted pictures of my landmarks out there in the road. That's my property. That's what I'm telling you today. And assuming that is true, then there's a couple of options, and I'm saying I will pass along those parcels of land that there to the town with a small sum of money. And because assuming it is true and you folks don't want to do that, then it's going to cost you a lot of money because you're going to have to start moving the road out in the woods. And I'm trying to help the town because we're going to be selling that property. When we sell that property, if we haven't resolved this, you might be dealing with somebody next year that doesn't have the same idea as I do, which is being helpful to the town.
I'm not speaking for the board, I'm speaking for myself. I certainly appreciate your willingness to do that, and I just think it's premature right now to have a position on anything until we know what the situation actually is. I'm not saying what you're saying is not true. I don't know, but I think we need to have all the information and have the research done and make sure we know what the situation is.
I did, Mr. Chairman, I did have a chance to go and walk loosely with the boundary lines with Mr. Greenlaw. And obviously I didn't have any, he had the map in front of me, and clearly there's something there. So I think by just walking it, but I want to let you know that I did have a chance to go up and physically walk.
And earlier this week,
And I also met with him out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
We were doing the same situation.
yeah, we showed the pins that are there and this and that. I think what happened was at that period of time, they came before the planning board and wanted to open up that road system up there, but it had to be a 50-foot right-of-way. But there was only one person that owned property. McIver. Well, they got to his property and they said, we can't put a line through his house with a 50-foot line. He doesn't belong to that. He already was here. So he's only in that 35-foot. That's what this document puts forth, okay? So, so that's where we are. So now, what I will propose to you to make this thing go along a lot quicker than it might be if we just put this on the table, it might take a long time, and we might not have a long time about returning this house over or something. I'll propose to pass along to the town the parcels of land as depicted on the pictures that I submitted to you folks, which would be the existing edge of pavement. I will return to the town. I will give to the town, okay? The only thing I want, I'm asking for a curb. I want to put a curb in, about 75 feet of curb from my property. I will also have a survey done by one of the two survey people in town that we both know. I don't know him personally. I know him to meet and say hello to for the most part. I'm asking the town to pay me for those services that I'm submitting to and paying for, and I'm saying up to $10,000. If the town will pay me, I will then pay assuming then we find out that what I'm telling you is appropriate, then the town will then be out $10,000, as opposed to if the town chooses not to do it and I own the property, it's going to be very, very costly. Very costly, or to another owner that might come along. So that's where we are. So I'm prepared to do those things, and sooner rather than later. Time is up to you.
I'm not sure, maybe I'm missing something. I don't think we can do anything yet.
Right. I mean, number one, we have to do our due diligence first.
Yeah.
Because it is, it's basically like doing a transfer. And then,
Is your due diligence the
Yeah.
survey?
uh,
If you don't do a
part of that
survey, you're
might
not
be a
doing due
survey.
diligence.
yeah, part of that might be a survey. The other thing is actually the money. Like, we are approved how much we can spend in March of each year. And so for us to raise a sum of money equal to that, we would know, we'd have a better picture toward the end of the year, but we'd
Right.
likely have to wait toward town meeting.
Yeah, so I look up, personally, I think we should be going through this process, and if there is an encroachment stuff, I think we need to, and we need to take advantage of his good nature and try to come to a solution that everybody's happy with. I'm not saying I'm just thinking, I'm not sure what you mean sooner rather than later. I don't think it just doesn't work that way in the municipal level. We can't just do it.
Well, what would the time cycle be to try to resolve
Yeah,
it?
I don't know. Well,
I mean, it depends.
if you have to raise the money, then we can't actually do it until March.
Yeah, that would be April, after the vote is approved.
In March.
Yeah, so first we have to deem appropriate action, and then find,
Yeah.
if appropriate action is funding, then find the funding.
So it seems to me that the longest it would be is that.
Right.
But I don't know what the shortest.
Shortest, like, then there's a determination at the end of the year, if we haven't expended all of our funds, the potential to, reallocate.
Move money to be able to do it.
do something like that. So that would be looking more like mid-December. We should usually have
But where are we
Mid-sense
now?
of-
We're in mid-August,
yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
September, October, November, December. So 4 months, that should give us, I mean, how long will it take to do the due diligence that's necessary?
I would think we could have a better idea within a week, maybe
Oh,
two.
okay.
So, yeah.
So,
So
but again,
we'll know
we're talking by the, closer to the end of the year,
Mm-hmm.
if we're gonna do it in this budget cycle, just because, where's the money gonna come from? We don't know that until we know where our budget stands.
But you're
Right.
saying that within a week or so, you're gonna have a response to my submission.
Yeah, to determine if we can move it as appropriate action. Would you confirm that?
Well, we have, yeah,
Yeah.
legal and real proper title search.
Okay, the title search too, so maybe that's 2-3
So
weeks.
this is into it,
Yeah,
for sure.
so,
Right.
under a month.
And you will,
Within the month.
you
I
will
think
keep
it's
me abreast of that?
Yep.
Yeah,
We'll be in
that's
touch.
fine.
Yeah.
And like I say, I don't expect that I'm gonna sell that property this year. You know, we're still working on it. But if somebody comes down the road tomorrow with a red check, I'm out of here. And you're back on this mess again.
Right.
So, I'll do everything possible I can do, if it's March, April, but I know that you folks in good faith have put forth, if we gotta put it on the, I don't know. you're
Put on the
gonna
ballot
Vote on
or the
those
budget.
things, I can't imagine you're gonna vote on a $10,000 item, but that may be
Well,
the case.
yeah, that sure is.
Is it
Yeah.
true? Really?
Yeah.
Really? You don't have a slush fund?
Hold on, let me check.
I thought maybe one of you would have a slush fund. Really? I know, I'm being serious.
Well, no, but that's why Andrew's talking about,
Yeah.
as the end of the year approaches, you budget different things, and sometimes you underspend budgets and you have resources available. So there may be money in this budget cycle, we just can't know this early in the year.
And then you could use it if there were such.
If the selectmen, well, I don't know what the legal implications are, but if the selectmen authorize it, we can. Well, a lot of the things, of course, the town manager has authority to do.
Right.
Something like this, I don't know if it's the selectmen or the town manager, but
It would depend on where the money's coming from.
yeah,
really,
right. So
yeah.
it depends. The authority's there in one form or another, if the money's there
Mhm,
in the
I
budget.
see.
We just won't know until the end of the year, closer to
That's
the end of the
calendar
year.
year. If
Calendar
there's no,
year, yes.
if there's no money left there, then you have to go to the town meeting.
And put it on, we have to budget for it for next year, and then it has to pass the
Unto
town.
itself, huh?
I don't know if it has to be a warrant article.
Oh,
It could, you know,
Just be
it
mixed
depends.
in with.
it could be
other-
part of a different, but it could come out of a different budget
I see.
or something like that.
Like maybe be part of a road work budget or something
Yeah.
like that, you know, with the right of
Yeah,
way.
so, come right out of that or something like that.
But we'd have to.
But the
we have
first
to
step is
cross-
getting to that point and
Yeah.
confirming that we're where we're at. And then,
Well, so I guess the first thing we're doing is confirming whether or not I presented to you with a problem.
Right, yeah.
And within a week or two, I should have an answer to that.
We were saying
I'd say we might.
within a month.
yeah, you're relying on
Give us a
other
month.
people, so be
Yeah.
careful about saying a
Yeah,
week.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
It all depends on what kind of priorities come up with the people we have on it. But yeah, I would say within the month should be a safe timeframe.
Within a month's
Within a
time
month.
frame,
Yep.
you could respond to me,
Yeah, and
so
we'll,
that I know where I stood.
yep.
Yeah.
Can we make a point that as we approach that month, whether you have the answers or not, do the courtesy of reaching out and saying, we're
Absolutely.
just waiting for more information, so that he doesn't think we just forgot about it.
Yep. Yep, we'll do that.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Going back in order.
Yeah.
So we're back to the transition report.
Okay. So with that, if you don't mind, if you'll entertain me, I'll just go over a quick timeline, just because there's been some other information out there about a different timeline, and just kind of cover that a little bit.
Okay.
So in most of these are approximate, but they should be pretty close. So in November of 2017, the Select Board created the EMS Commission. The purpose was to review RFPs for contracted EMS service. At that time, our current provider, Calix, had increased costs to such a point that we needed to put it out to bid, and Calix did not want to participate in providing a response to the RFP. In February of 2018, Golden Cross is recommended by the EMS Commission. Contractor indicates a willingness to provide service on a short-term and annual basis to allow the community to conduct a study to determine most equitable solution for community EMS needs. And again, just like we were talking about earlier with Mr. Greenlaw, whenever we do something, we have to wait for funding to become available. So in September through December of 2018, EMS study RFP was developed and released. Funding was to come from the 2019 Fire Department budget. In March of 2019, the budget was approved by town meeting. Contractor MRI was considered. EMS Commission selected MRI, and a notice to proceed was given with the independent study. They then put that in their schedule. Then in May of 2019, Golden Cross, who was contacted by MRI to gather information for the study. And then in May and June, the Golden Cross started reaching out, saying basically that they didn't plan on really participating. So we began trying to negotiate for a term of a contract that would make sense, that would still allow the town to conduct its study and for it to make its own determination. So then in June of 2019, this year, MRI study parameters were amended to assist the town with a rapid options for review and implementation of what would be viable for EMS service for Littleton. In July of 2019, the EMS Commission had a presentation of findings by MRI. There was an 8-to-1 vote to proceed with a fire-based EMS system. Also in July of this year, the Board of Selectmen had a presentation by MRI and the EMS Commission with recommendations, a 2-to-1 vote to proceed with fire-based EMS. In July, Easton and Sugar Hill we had verbal agreement to proceed and provide EMS service, continuation service. Also, right after that, in July, we proceeded with the purchase of an ambulance and equipment to provide that service. The purchase of the equipment has a escape clause, which means that if we didn't get the financing for it approved at town meeting, we could hand back the equipment without penalty. Also in July, given a lot of this is happening in July because we have a very short period of time. It's almost unheard of to set up a functioning ambulance service this quickly. We began staffing recruitment. Last month and this month, we began talking with the fire department about a memorandum of agreement for the new staff and the coverage to provide the service. And the in August, so beginning of this month, I believe it was August 2nd, the fire department took over EMS service, and I'm going to leave it off there and turn it over to Chief Mercieri and
Thank you.
Captain.
Sure. Actually, the captain has a brief report.
I'll come sit over here.
How you doing?
I can face you guys and I'll go through the back end of his head. Thank you for having us here tonight. As was laid out by the timeline, we were given 27 days to implement a fire-based EMS system. And we were really able to do that because of the groundwork that the department has laid in hiring personnel. Through our hiring practices, we hired experienced EMS providers and firefighters. And so when this opportunity came along at this unpredicted time for us, we were really in a strong position in order to be able to step in and do this. So 27 days came and we started on August 2nd, 2019. So it's been 17 days. Did you have 2 calls today, Tom? 2 calls, any transport?
1 transport.
So we've had 53 calls for service since that time, including 3 first alarm fires, 2 in Littleton and 1 in Lisbon. We've had 36 medical calls, 42 patient contacts with 21 transports and 21 non-transports. We completed our first paramedic intercept, although it's not quite an intercept because of the condition of the patient. They weren't moved. The paramedic went to them in another community and assessed and treated them. We haven't had to request EMS mutual aid into Littleton, which in my experience in the 17-day window is unusual. This is due to the nature of the way that the calls have come in this case, and the speed and proficiency in which our staff is turning around calls and getting back into service. And so we're currently on pace for about 1,000 calls for service this year. We're now obtaining patient refusal of care sign-offs on any person involved in a motor vehicle collision, which is why our non-transport rate is right around 50% now. Our previous contractor didn't respond to motor vehicle collisions where there wasn't a report of injury, at least initially. We always did, and we believe it's good practice to get those medical sign-offs on those calls and not just make any assumptions. Surprisingly enough, unfortunate good number of motor vehicle collisions end up later requiring medical attention once things kind of calm down, usually for non-emergency type reasons.
On that point, I don't want to interrupt. If you want to get through this, it's
No,
fine.
I'll take questions at any
I'm
point.
curious on that point of the transfers. So you're ending up exactly 50% of the
Correct.
calls have resulted in transports.
Yep.
Do you know, is that typical for EMS?
I would say that in my experience, is a little bit on the low end, but we're looking at a 17-day window as well.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just,
It's hard to get some statistical relevance to that, but it's a number we had talked about in the past, and I wanted to to bring that forward so you just know where we are today. Yeah, so we're getting sign-offs on all persons involved in motor vehicle collision. Some milestones, talking and reflecting back on the past 17 days. There's an MOU has been reached between the town and the union, which I understand will be reviewed tonight, which I don't think is any small feat. And as a person that is involved in the department, but not in administration and not in union leadership, I think a tremendous amount of work from my seat has gone into making that happen. I think that's something that both the administration and the union should be very proud of. We've sent essentially conditional offers to the 3 full-time employees. We're looking at having them start August 26th. In fact, I was just text messaging a few of them as I was listening to the report on the boundary issues. We will be starting part-time interviews this week. For me, it was important to have that MOU in place before we went forward with some of those moves. We received the new ambulance and it's stocked. There's approximately 350 check boxes we have to check with the state in order to become licensed as a transport EMS ambulance, and we have 249 of those in place. We're just waiting for a radio, which will be in place this week, and at that point we'll have the ambulance inspected essentially in the same day, and it'll be in service immediately.
who does that inspection?
The Bureau of EMS. So depending on the day and the time, we'll either bring it to Gorham where they have a field office or to Concord, which is their headquarters. So they've been extremely flexible and helpful in this process during some of the timelines involved. We have a new cardiac monitor capable of providing CPR feedback as far as depth and rate. And we know that this leads to a 2.7 times greater CPR survival rate. So that's something that we're really looking forward to implementing and getting more used to.
Can we back up
Sure.
to the staffing? I wasn't sure you were done with that.
No,
So you've
sorry.
made offers to 3, or you've actually hired 3?
So they wouldn't be hired until both the town and the employee has signed the conditional offers. And so we don't have 3 letters back yet.
Okay,
But
you've made offers.
we've made offers, and I'm expecting all 3.
What level are they?
So we have 3 levels. We have a paramedic, we have an AEMT, and we have an EMT. And for EMS, and one is Fire 3. I believe 2 are Firefighter 3 and 1 is Firefighter 1.
Sorry.
Please ask as they come, otherwise they kind of, get buried. We have an updated medication formulary that consists of us carrying 116 doses of 43 different medications. That's expanded upon greatly what we used to carry. We've got a new budding partnership with Littleton Regional Hospital in the town that is helping us focus on some quality issues and patient-driven outcomes. So what happens to the patient 2 weeks from, we don't really know. So the hospital is able to come in and provide us whether our treatment modalities led to better outcomes for patients, or no different outcome or worse. And our full-time employees have been scheduled to conduct limited clinical rounds at LRH as well as part of that. Some ongoing items, there's plenty of ongoing items. Driver training program is being initiated. I mean, the ambulance, we want to make sure people feel comfortable operating it, knowing where all the buttons and switches are without having to look, certainly operating in an emergency condition. So we're going to begin that process of getting everybody up to speed on that and
Captain, who does the training on that?
So it'll be kind of I'm sure we'll have several people that will be very involved in it. So it'll be probably a little more organic, but it'll be looking at the owner's manual, making sure we're kind of following that, training some other trainers. That way, as other new people come onto the department, like part-time members, it's not just something something that sits with one person. They can do it on shift, that type of thing. So. We're building the EMS billing program with postal medical billing. We have a contract that actually been away for a few days. It may have been signed. It may not have though. I don't have the latest on that. But spending time thinking about how you want your billing system laid out before you begin entering runs into it is critical in order to get those database decisions out of it after the fact. There's a lot of very technical aspects of that. But it's certainly something you don't want to rush. It's worth taking some time to figure out.
Can I ask you a question about
Yes,
that?
ma'am.
Just thinking about down the road. So we bill a patient,
Yep.
and they don't pay. What then? I mean, do we take our taxpayers to court? Do we? How does that work?
You will
Collections
decide.
or-
We will recommend a collections or a billing practices policy, which will include whether things go to collections or not. That'll be at the policy level a board decision, not at the individual level, obviously. And so, as a board and as a department, we will provide some feedback to you as to what we think is reasonable, just based off of industry standard practices, what the billing company recommends, those types of things. I can say, having done this while, I've only been involved in one suit as far as collecting money, and that's because of a loophole that existed, in which still exists to a certain degree, where because insurance companies are not required to pay us as medical providers, because we're under a different section of Medicare, they send a check to the patient. And one patient figured this out, that every time she called the ambulance, she got a rather large check in the mail. Didn't want to have to pay that. We felt the town I worked for at that time felt like it was appropriate to seek that. So the bill had been paid. The law wouldn't require the insurance company to pay it to the town. They paid it to the patient, and so that was the only case I've been involved with where somebody was taken to court. So to speak.
Okay.
We're going to begin quality improvement reviews in September. So typically we'll do it on a monthly or quarterly basis. So 17 days in, I can say anecdotally, we're all up on, what we're seeing out there and what's working and what isn't working. Other ongoing items is establishing a heart-safe community, which plays into CPR survival rates and cardiac arrest survival rates. We're going to, hopefully with your approval, you'll be seeing more on this very soon, establishing a grant-funded community paramedic program through the New Hampshire First project, which is funding that's come through for opioid-related. I don't have the exact number of opioid-related deaths because the fire department doesn't see every death if they're found days later. There's not a need to be assessed by a medical provider, but we are at an unacceptable level. I know of more than 5 deaths, which puts us in the one of the highest rates per capita for fatal overdoses in New Hampshire. So this is really a hot spot, unfortunately, for the drug crisis in the state. Ongoing items, orienting our new members that we're bringing on board, both full-time and part-time. Determining the key reporting measures, so things that chief will be looking at, the town manager will be looking at, things that you want to look at, and how to run the report system to get those out. We haven't had to do that on this level before. And the reporting system has changed since the last iteration of it several years ago that I used. So we're learning that, so to speak, in order to get the data out that you guys might be looking for. So if it's something, like the transport rate, for example, was one thing that come up in the past. If there's other key metrics that you're interested in, let me know, and we'll find the correct process to get those out. And also transmission of vital signs in ECGs directly to the hospital from the field, which is a new thing from this in this community. That hasn't happened in the past. So the emergency department physician will be, if we have a cardiac event, will be seeing on their screen exactly what we're seeing in the field. And so when we call them up to talk about treatment modalities, we're all operating from the same.
And that wasn't available with the previous providers?
No, it hasn't. That link between the EMS provider and the hospital has not been created. So the technology has existed, but
Yeah,
it
sure.
hadn't been implemented.
We didn't create new technology to do this.
Correct. Actually, the TV show Emergency from the 70s would do that, but for some reason it just never happened in northern New Hampshire in general. So it's not just a Littleton thing, but
Well, that's good.
that's something that Dr. Hirsch and our partnership in LRH is helping us with. I do have a few thank yous. I'd like to thank the board, administration, and the community for support during this time. There's been a lot of conversation about the process, and I think we all look back and have areas that if we were to do this again in 27 days or make these decisions, we do process a little bit different. But we're committed to being transparent and making this successful. I want to personally thank the amazing job that the firefighters have done in the department. This is only possible through their effort. I'm just one person, one cog in this wheel. Everybody's had a part to play in it, and a big part to play in it. You're only hearing from me, but they're a big part of the success, and you have a lot to be proud of there. And I'd like to thank the town of Whitefield for allowing us to use the ambulance in this interim gap. I'm sure I could go on and on with thank yous, but I'll keep it those three for right now.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions?
No, at this point.
We're all set. As is our new custom, I guess we'll open up to comments on each issue as we go forward. So is there any comment from the public on this?
I would like to ask the captain over there, who's going to establish the amount of money that the patients should pay the ambulance, just in case?
So the billing rates. So we will come forward with recommendations to the select board after looking at working with our billing company for what each rate is. It's not just a rate. It's medicine. Unfortunately, it's a little bit complicated, but there will be a list of rates that the board will approve for that.
You try to say that every patient has got different rate. Let's say if I call because whatever, you're gonna charge me so much. If he calls, you're gonna charge him.
So it's not based at all on who you are, like we like you or we don't like you, or you should or you shouldn't. It's based on whether it's an emergency and the level of care we provide, whether it's basic life support or advanced life support. So there's a couple different categories that you could fall into based on if you called what your medical emergency is and how we treated that.
Do the union come up with bylaws for you guys, about, opening it up to some new entities as an ambulance and stuff like that? You guys, whoever belongs to the union, has got bylaws, you gotta abide by bylaws or not? Or just,
I guess I don't understand the question.
Rudy, I think what I would say is for the most part, everything's already covered under town policy. So under the town employee policy that we have, and also the collective bargaining unit agreement that we have with the fire union, and everything else is already
it's already
covered. We have,
established and stuff
we have
like
a
that?
right. We have an MOA that the select board's actually a memorandum of agreement that the board is considering later in this meeting with that in mind. So.
That just means if somebody wants to know, everything that's going on between the new entity of the ambulance at the time is going to come to you, just said, and you're going to give them everything, right, that the individual asked for, right?
Right, yeah, we haven't created a new entity. They still exist under the town. It's really the fire department. The fire department's always been Littleton Fire and Rescue, and this is just expanding the services that they provide.
Do the union is going to sign a contract with the town or not?
We plan on starting negotiations soon, and
5 years, 2 years,
that'll be one of our topics of discussion once we start meeting.
5 years contracts.
That'd be nice. Then we don't have to
We're
talk
gonna-
about it again
Yeah,
for
I
5
mean,
years.
we're due for negotiating a contract, and that's,
Yeah.
right now, we're just continuing on a previous contract still.
Yeah.
So that's,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
anyone else? Okay, thank you, Captain Miller.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chief, and all the
Chief
firefighters.
might have
as
something
well.
else to add, so.
We're good?
Good. Well, I'd just like to say thank you too. The guys really, I mean, we don't have extra staff right now. So right now, our staff that we have they're handling all this same fire and emergency calls plus EMS, and I know it's a lot of extra work, and I'm sure it's wearing you guys out.
They're clearly
Thank you.
stepping up, and
Yeah,
that's
thank you.
what it's gonna take.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I don't know. Do you guys establish the salary of these new people that they hire or they do, salary-wise?
It'd be according to the collective
It'd be part of
bargaining
the
unit.
agreement, the
Yeah.
collective bargaining agreement that already exists, as well as the MOA, depending on what level staff is hired. All right,
Okay.
let's move on. What's next? We're back on the, there's no other old business. Well, I guess this was old business, but we're into new business now.
First under town manager report.
Where's that? Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped it. Sorry, go ahead.
So, first up we have the EMS memorandum of agreement. We've been working with the fire department on this and have come to a preliminary agreement for the select board to consider. Oh yeah, that was sent separately.
Okay, yeah, so that, you distributed that to the selectmen for review. I guess I've reviewed it. I don't really have any questions right now. I may, once I hear other people that are smarter than me ask questions. So you guys do you have any comments or questions?
Well, that's not a true statement, Franco. You are very intelligent. The only question I had was on 1, 2, 3, the fourth line down. If we could just add, it says, whereas the pilot program's duration will be for 3 years. Can we put in there dates, August 2nd, 2019 to August 1st, 2022? That way we know the 3-year time frame.
Yes. Let's see.
Because otherwise,
Well, I understand that. My concern is that gonna end up, do we have to go through a whole nother round of reviews?
Of negotiations.
And negotiations for
It's
something
possible.
like that?
You know, Mike Elwell is going to make himself available to us. If the board doesn't mind, I'll just bring him on. That way, if you have questions, because there's always unintended consequences, or the potential of it at least,
Okay.
by
Yeah, okay.
making small changes. So,
I mean, it's not a big deal, but I'm just thinking if we can establish that 2-year or the 3-year time frame.
let me just see. Yeah, I'll bring Elwell on.
You're gonna call him, or you're
Yeah, I'm going to call him in. There we go.
While he's calling him, is there something else?
Yeah, I got a couple other, just probably insignificant things, but is there a place on there where we could put, like, I'm sure Captain would be here to report to us the numbers, because you had mentioned it. But does it need to be in the MOA?
I wouldn't think in the MOA.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think it needs to be in the MLA. In fact, if I understand, they're required by law to track these things to begin with. and even though it wasn't being done before. So we can request the numbers at
Okay.
any time. Is that
Yeah.
a true statement?
And that-
So we're not required to track those numbers by law, but we are required to enter in all of any EMS run we respond to. So we
Okay.
generate the reports off that system.
Yeah, okay.
And I believe that was one of the MRI recommendations, as well, I don't have them right in front of me, that either it's the EMS commissioner or a group being paneled to discuss what the targets are, the key metrics,
Okay.
and whether we're meeting them or not.
So it wouldn't be important enough to put it in an MOA then?
Yeah, because this would really, this would really be reflecting agreement with labor
Okay,
versus like operations.
Operations.
So, but what you're talking about will likely be part of the audit process that we
Okay.
were referred to in the MRI report.
all right.
So there will be some key things that are considered. Mike, I couldn't get Mike on the phone. But, let's see.
So the only other question I had was on C, second page, so it'd be 2C, page 2. It, second paragraph down, it says a shift schedule for more than 7 full-time, let me read up top. The second unnumbered paragraph, the memorandum of agreement dated April 27th, 2018 concerning the shift schedule for 7 full-time firefighters will be amended to provide a shift schedule for more than 7 full-time firefighters. Do we have a max number in there?
Personally, I'd be reluctant to do that because
Okay.
we don't know what this is gonna look like going
Okay.
forward. So we don't wanna have I don't think we wanna have something in the agreement that doesn't allow us to do something that we
Okay.
think that we should be doing, you know? Because right now, the numbers, what we're talking about is really the basic level to be able to provide the service, right?
Okay.
But if we choose to expand that so that we can capture revenues, well, we're gonna need more people, and if we put a number here, then we can't.
Okay. Yep,
Well,
no,
I
that
suppose
makes
we
sense.
can, we'd have to negotiate it again.
Right.
Yeah,
I
Okay,
think leaving it ambiguous gives us a bit more flexibility.
yeah.
super, thank you.
Since we can't get Attorney Elwell on the phone, how important is that specific dates in there to you? I mean, it's 3 years, we know the date of the document.
Yeah, it would, I think
You know,
by default
how
would
important is
be,
it to have the actual dates in the document?
without putting that in, I think what Franco was saying basically is like the date that it's signed, like tonight, for example, you're making the motion would potentially
Yeah.
to agree to it.
So would
That it
it
would start
start,
from today,
okay,
right?
all
Yeah,
right.
I assume it would, it says 3 years, and that's, I mean, that's how agreements
I would
work.
assume that it's the starting date of when it's signed and executed.
Yeah.
So are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that, yeah.
Do you have any questions or comments,
No,
Jeff?
I don't think so. I read through it earlier today, and it looks like a well-drafted document.
So, obviously, it's here in front of us, so the chief and you, Andrew, are good with this. Any comments on this, chief?
I think it was a well-prepared document. The language is clear, concise. We understand exactly what the document entails, what the parameters are. I'm very comfortable with going forward with this document.
And as far as management, I would say that it's really fair to the town. So again, allows the town to maintain its management rights. So,
All right, I guess we need to get this to the, is this something that we have to actually vote on? Yeah,
yeah, you would want to.
so we need to get this to the discussion stage. I'd entertain a motion to accept the memorandum of agreement as
Do we
written.
have to do public input first?
Yeah, don't we do that at the, yeah, I get confused when we do it. Let's do the public input now.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, might as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so any public input on this memorandum? No?
It was possible I copy the memorandum after you guys come out.
I assume it's public information, right?
Yep.
Well, it's
After,
up there.
yeah, after it's executed, yeah.
Like that we can spread, to the people in Littleton,
Mhm.
they pay taxes.
Mhm.
Yep, I think, just on Rudy's point, to clarify, our collective bargaining agreements, and these agreements are required by the Department of Labor also to be published on the Department of Labor website. So we put that information up there as well. So if you ever want to take a look.
Make a motion to accept it as presented and execute it.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. So you'll get a document. We'll just come by and sign at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We should, do you have an official document for us to sign right now?
I don't, unless you want to make one of yours official.
I wrote on mine.
Mine's clear if you want to.
Let's do that, so that it
Okay,
has today's
that's ready.
date on it, and we're
Yeah.
done with it. We don't have people signing all different times.
Does anybody have a blue pen? I always like that
I
one.
have no, I don't.
Good for that. That's my erasable, so I can just.
Do we need a copy? You need a second copy, or would a copy?
If I might have a copy.
Okay.
I do have a copy that I had previously signed at the last meeting.
A different date on it.
Yeah, the 13th.
Yeah, maybe we just do this one for fresh. Yeah. And then, if you guys are okay with it, I'll make you a color copy of this. Is that right? I'm gonna do the date. And while.
Do you want me to use blue?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
While he's signing, we do have contracts that'll be coming up probably for the next select board meeting. 18, yeah. I'm getting ahead of myself there.
I'm sorry, do we have a
Oh,
contract?
so we have, like we stated earlier, contracts that are verbal with Sugar Hill and
Oh, yeah.
Easton. And we have just some small final things that we're working out with, and we'll have those for consideration at the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks again, everyone, for all your
Yeah, thank
efforts and
you.
your commitment.
Is there any other business for us that we really?
No, we're just gonna make you stay.
I don't think we need you for the ambulance billing stuff, right?
Oh, I will. So that's, you have to approve a new bank account and some fiscal controls that.
I understand, but I'm just
Yeah,
saying, do you need to
that's
be here for
something
that?
I'm not up to date on it. Karen's the manager of the donor company
Yeah, you
directly.
don't need to. I can fill you in.
Okay, so we're,
Yeah.
so then no, if this isn't exciting enough for you guys to hang out, then we need to.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we want to continue with the town manager's report?
Sounds good.
Wanna continue with your report?
All right. Next up under new business, we have LRH resolution.
Oh, I thought we were going through your.
Oh, my report, yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Got a little ahead of myself again there. Okay. So, as I was saying, the EMS and Sugar Hill contracts, Littleton Fire Rescue being covering Sugar Hill and Easton on August 2nd. We're currently providing the service to both communities at the same rate we charge, or that they were charged by Golden Cross. Want to make sure that they didn't run into a situation just like we didn't want to ourselves, where we have expenses that are outside of the approved budget. So the contracts that we have are basically a bridge contract to get us to the next fiscal year. We're going to take a look at what information we have by the end of the year, assess it, and work with Sugar Hill and Easton to try to make sure that they have the information they need.
What about the service level of that? Are we just using the same, is there such a difference? Is there different service levels for what they're?
No, we respond, when they call, we respond. And
Okay.
you know, if there's a Yeah, at advanced life support.
Okay.
And like was said earlier, you know, there's mutual aid, but I don't think we've had to use that yet. So it's been pretty good. On another update, and I'll give you a little recap. I don't think Chad was here last time when this happened, but I think both of you were. The dewatering at the treatment plant. So we use a thing called a centrifuge, which spins at high RPMs. So the wastewater treatment plant's Westphalia centrifuge, it's an important and critical component. It's the final component in a process that removes treatable water from solids. We purchased the centrifuge 17 years ago at an approximate cost of $500,000. It has a life expectancy of 10 years. To lengthen its life, it received a bearing replacement in 2017. And last year, you'll remember it began to fail when it was spinning at high RPMs. It lost balance and we had to take it out of service. And if you remember, we started getting some pretty high bills while we were trying to figure out what to do because we were hauling pretty heavy slop. So at its highest performance, it removed 20% of liquids. The remaining solids were once a week transported to be put into Casella landfill. But in 2016, we put the disposal of the solids out to bid, and we worked with RMI, who we've been working with since, and had a significant financial savings to the sewer fund. And with that, they were doing a reuse project where they would actually take the biosolids and turn them into a Class A fertilizer that was used for land application.
Are they still doing that?
They're still doing that, but they're getting out of that business.
Yeah, okay.
I think there's some law changes coming down, PFOAs, PFOSs, that sort of thing, that's going to impact, you know, the ability for a lot of communities to be able to do that anymore. So the Westphalia centrifuge was broken. We reviewed alternatives. We had Dufresne Group help us with that to take a look at a short-term solution and a long-term solution. We looked at, one of the things we did look at the time was the Cinchi dryer method. It removes, instead of 20% of the liquids, it removes 95% of the liquids. So you end up with an actual solid product. Back then, because we were looking at a pretty significant cost, and we were also looking at the capital improvement plan for the treatment plant. We have a long-range plan that we're working on. We wanted to try to kind of fold that in and extend the life of the centrifuge. So the select board approved repairs of the centrifuge last year. Unfortunately, the device is starting to fail again, or is failed, and it's due to corrosion in the control unit, and we're attempting to have that fixed. I was just seeing if Doug was here because he might see if he had any updated information on the repairs. We continue to attempt repair, but we'll likely recommend a complete replacement to a new system in the near future. And by near future, I mean probably by the next meeting, we'll have a full recommendation. And like explaining before, the new system will result in essentially an elimination of solid removal contracts. So right now we're spending, I think maybe it's around $50,000 a year. It was more than that, and it'll be more than that in 2019. But that'll eliminate the need for that contract.
It'll eliminate it?
Yeah, because what we'll be going from is a little over a load a week that's being transported to the potential of one load a year. There's also potential that the final product that comes out, it's going to be a dry pelletized, almost pelletized. It can be used as a Class A fertilizer, and it could be given out for free or potentially mixed in compost, or in some cases there might even be a market for it. So I wouldn't want to go that far though and just say.
I understand,
yeah.
but so I want to make sure I understand. Right now we're paying $50,000 a year for removal, and it takes a $300,000 investment to get rid of that.
It'll be. I think we're estimating we got to. I think. Get some final estimates on some of the upgrades that have to happen on the site, for example, like in the concrete or the electrical.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm guessing around $350,000 to do it. So,
What's the life
Maybe we
expectancy?
should have looked at that a little closer before we spent money to fix the centrifuge before.
Before we were under the understanding that the repair was going to be
it'll last
another
17 years.
Well, not that far, but maybe 2 or 3, and allow us to plan this out. So, for example, a $300,000 cash purchase of a piece of equipment while we're doing a CIP for the facility, imagine a USDA potential match of 45%, maybe
Yeah.
some other funds that could be potential, so you could use that to leverage.
So that was a
lot more.
reason to try to hold off if we
Yeah,
could.
but, you know, right now we're in really an emergency situation, so, I think unless a miracle happens over the next week, we're gonna
So,
have to move forward.
I should know this, but I don't.
Mhm.
What is the balance of that fund?
We're looking at it right now because there is some allocations, you know, so like the balance, like let's say the balance is $800,000. There is, I don't remember the total, it might be say 130 that's dedicated to Mill Street. There's
Mhm.
bond money that's dedicated to sub 5 debt, you know, there's different repairs that are happening around town that might already be dedicated. So,
So do you
We-
have
we-
an idea if we have enough to cover that
yeah,
already, or is
I believe we do.
okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so the return on investment and additional information will be presented at the next meeting. And, you know, I've kind of mentioned the report and just now, like how I was hoping to tie it with other needed improvements at the site, but we're probably going to have to address this more quickly. Yeah, I'll just give you a quick update on the property purchase and the parking lot expansion up on Hillview Terrace. So town meeting approved Article 20 to authorize purchase of map 78, lot 179. A phase 1 environmental study was done and conducted and revealed some parcel usage that indicated there could be contaminated soils. We requested to do a phase 2. We were denied. But shortly after that, the parcel was sold with the 42 Main Street. So we're reviewing that right now just to take a look and see what our next step is. And I have spoken with the new property owner, and there's interest to work with the town, so we'll continue pursuing that. So. Let's see.
So that deposit is still sitting, waiting.
Yep. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's pretty much what I have. We had our ribbon cutting for the Saranac and Amanuset Street project. That went well. We're still looking at the next step in that. We do have the next step is looking at some of the right-of-way down further at the end of the road. We also have the Plan NH design charrette that's coming up next month, mid-next month. And we'll have more information on that coming out for the next meeting. I will, if the board doesn't object, we'll have under the appointments a presentation maybe by the Plan NH staff to talk about what to expect in the community. There's going to be about 15 experts in their fields here, and we'll be hosting meetings at the Opera House on the Friday and Saturday afternoons for brainstorming, but they'll have more detail at the next meeting. So, and one other thing, I don't know if I mentioned it here, we were awarded a grant for the Cottage Street level of the Opera House. That's to hire a consultant, an engineer, or an architect, or both, to help begin planning the next phase of that. And in the application, we talked about using it as a secondary performing space and potential education classroom type spaces that are down there too.
That's
So,
good.
Yeah, that's good.
How much was it for?
I'd have to look. I think it was sub 30,000.
Okay,
So,
wow.
I'd have to look.
Significant.
Something that's not on the old business list, but I'm just curious about, we haven't heard anything in a while about this parking plan and research and recommendations. And
So the parking commission finished with their final draft,
Yeah.
and they plan on doing a presentation for you, I think, on the next meeting on the 9th.
Okay,
So it'll probably be 10-15 minute presentation about their findings.
okay, good.
Yeah, just in time for budget season. So
Well, that's what I'm
That's for it,
trying to
yeah.
get concerned about.
I guess I could also just give you a quick update. The rail trail. So the rail trail project is all hurdles have been passed. The only thing we're waiting on now is the State Bureau of Trails is going to be releasing a sometime in the near future an RFP to remove the rails and clear the line and put down the materials. So
That's great.
just waiting on that. Yeah.
Cool.
That's what I have.
Moving on. Next item on the agenda is the LRH resolution, exit from North Country Healthcare. As Andrew has pointed out in his summary, Littleton Regional Hospitals determined that participation in the North Country Health Consortium isn't in the best interest of their longevity and is interested in support of the selectmen for withdrawal. They had reached out to me and asked me about that, asked if I would support. I asked them questions about reasoning, and it boiled down to their resources that they could be using locally are being sucked off for the other entities, or at least some of them. I don't know all of them, and I don't know which one. I certainly don't want to say so now anyways. I thought that I put this together just based on what I saw, and I'd just like to read this and have us consider it to see if we are going to support that for the Littleton Regional Hospital. So, a resolution in support of Littleton Regional Healthcare's withdrawal from North Country Healthcare, August. Whereas Littleton Regional Healthcare is a community resource whose mission is to provide quality, compassionate, and accessible healthcare in a manner that brings value to all, and whereas it is in the interest of the town of Littleton to support this important resource and continue a mutually beneficial relationship by helping ensure that valuable resources are retained for the benefit of the town of Littleton, be resolved that the Littleton Selectboard, on behalf of the town of Littleton, New Hampshire, support the withdrawal of Littleton Regional Healthcare from North Country Healthcare to assure charitable dollars and access to healthcare resources remain in the Littleton community. It is hereby certified by the undersigned that the foregoing resolution was duly passed by the Select Board of the town of Littleton during their August 19, 2019 Selectmen's meeting, has been duly recorded in the town of Littleton's records and is in full force and effect. Now, obviously, I presumed, and I'm not saying that we have to agree on this, but I presumed that just to facilitate getting this done if we do agree on that. So open that up to discussion. Any comments? Do you want to get it to discussion stage of the?
I'll make a motion
Okay.
that we adopt or how would we say it? Support the resolution in support of Littleton Regional Healthcare's withdrawal from North Country Healthcare. Will it be as of this date? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, that's why if we do it tonight.
All right.
I'll second that.
Okay, so any discussion?
I think it's a great idea to support them in this.
Good. All right, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? So
Sign-
we can
we'll
sign
get a
it.
copy.
We don't have to sign
Yep.
it tonight. That's why I
Yep.
worded it that
Put it
way.
on a nice piece of paper.
Yeah, we'll put it
Yeah.
on some
Yeah.
fancy paper and put it in your box.
I don't care what it's on. We don't have to sign it tonight.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, you did specify a little bit more. You read that thing, I can have nothing.
I'm sorry, but
No. Do you specify with the other words, what is the main exit from the North Country? What, is got anything to do
Should
with
have,
this?
should have
with
brought
the
this. You
taxpayers?
should have brought this up at the discussion stage, but I'll respond. So the Littleton Regional Healthcare, you may be aware, you may have read about it, whatever, was in a trial consortium, and they're pulling out of it, and they're in the process of trying to get that done. And our resolution is just supporting that. And it has no legal bearing or anything. It's just a supporting them in that effort.
Thank you.
Okay. Next. Ambulance billing service, opening of new bank account.
Do you want to review and re-adopt the budget
Oh, yeah.
procedure
Oh,
policy?
thank you.
You're welcome.
Missed that.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll just go over real quick the purpose of the policy. It provides a budget process guidance. It defines relevant budget definitions. It establishes a timeline for default and proposed budgets. And it establishes a process for outside agency budget requests. I think in the past there were some confusion over the process, and this really was put together to provide clarity for everybody involved, whether it be the budget committee, select board, outside agencies, town employees, town manager. So, the budget process timeline, as laid out in the policy, By September 15th, department head budgets and warrant articles are submitted to the town manager and finance. September 20th, which is an estimate, finance to town manager draft. By October 1st, finance provides town manager and the select board with the budget. By October 15th, the budget is sent to the budget committee. By December 15th, the budget committee has a final budget vote. December 20th, budget committee, final warrant article vote. I don't think we hit all those timelines last time.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it this time,
yeah.
saying that September 15th.
I think, what you'll find is sometimes the budget committee, we go over the budget in quite a bit of detail, and sometimes we might get a little into detail of policy or.
Well, let's
management
back
stuff.
up
Yeah.
for a second. I'm talking about before it even gets to the budget committee, because September 15th, department head budgets and all warrant articles are
Submitted.
submitted. Are we even close? Are we going to be there by the 15th?
That's what department heads are told. So,
Okay.
yeah,
What
it's
about warrant articles?
they should have their warrant articles to us by the 15th.
Okay.
This is we try to keep it tight. I would say, right now it's kind of a shoot for the moon and hit the stars, but yeah, it's pretty tight.
That's tight.
Yeah. We could amend it. One thing when we are amending it, we got to think about is just whatever the state statute
Right, the
requirements
deadline.
are.
I think
Yeah.
that's how it was originally established. I
Yeah.
don't remember, but I think it was originally established by when it had to be done.
Right.
So then we started working backwards, and then we said, "Holy crap! It's September 15th."
Uh-huh.
Hopefully, department heads are already working on it, Chief.
Yes.
We have a department head meeting coming up, so we'll be talking about it.
Well, okay.
If you wanted to, we could try to amend some of those.
This is the same as what the policy was last year.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we hit it or not, this is the
That's
same.
our goal, is
Yeah.
to hit those, yeah.
And this
Ideally,
was
we
new
would.
last year,
This
too.
was new last year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do we think we learned anything from last year, in the sense of maybe department heads being more prepared to be able to get it closer to the goal?
I'd say it's tough, but, I
We have
think.
a department head
Yeah.
here. What do you think?
The issue that plagued me was I can't get real good numbers for next year from certain vendors until maybe end of October, November, sometimes December,
Yeah.
because they're just not ready to project what those numbers are going to be for next year.
Mhm.
So we're running on some, I want to say, assumptions, if you will, and then, we try to figure out when we can make these adjustments. And a lot of times those adjustments are made, it could be before the first budget meeting, it could be during the whole budget process, when we run into that. And that's
So the
it's not-
preliminary one for the 15th is making assumptions, which we would expect, right?
Yeah.
You just do your best, but in that process through to what, December 15th
Mhm.
is when you nailed down the final numbers?
Yeah, from, like, last year, for example, I think we, it was late December when we finished with the budget committee. It
Yeah,
was like December 23rd or something.
23rd, yeah. it was
Something like that.
week.
So
But-
from a selectman's perspective, Chad, you weren't there. Last year, I didn't feel like the selectmen got it in time to really have a chance to really review it. But it was still better than the year before. The year before
Mhm.
was the day,
Mhm.
and that was next to impossible. So to me, there was improvement last year in terms of when it got to us.
Mhm.
I don't know how the sausage was made,
Right.
but when it got to us, it was improved. It was improved timeline. I'm hoping then this year might be even better too if we can get closer to meeting these deadlines.
Yeah.
But is there some sort of different language? I mean, budget preparation schedule policy. obviously, if we don't hit those dates, what's gonna happen? Someone's not gonna be taken out back and shot. Is this more of a guideline or a goal? I'm afraid if we make it goal though, people,
I would say, yeah, okay, so
Yeah,
the policy,
department
there
heads
there
shouldn't
could
do that
potentially be
anyways.
some accountability, but, I would not be opposed to having some softer language than budget procedure
I'm just
policy
thinking about
or
a taxpayer
budget-
who might read that this is a policy and how come you're not following your policy?
Budget procedure guidelines.
Yeah,
Set
I
of
think
policy.
that would be better because I just think it's good to shoot for these and if we hit them, boy, I'll be really proud of everyone, but I'd be surprised if we hit them.
Right. Very good.
So I guess I would
Okay.
ask, it doesn't take board action to do anything like that.
I'll have a.
You named it this anyways, right?
Yeah, well,
You think the budget committee will,
I think they'd
Be
be
okay
okay with
with
that.
it?
I mean, it was difficult with the budget committee too, and honestly, when the budget process is so intense and
Mhm.
so right down to the wire, that, you know, we all, by the end of it, are just trying to get it out within the legal parameters that are set by DRA. So the process itself, just by its nature and the way that the times are set by the legislator through DRA, I mean, they're just really tight.
I think it's helpful for me. It was helpful for me last year. I didn't the first year when I was new. I didn't know. It was helpful for me to, when I could, come to the budget meetings when the
Yeah.
things being presented. So I knew kind of what we were dealing with once it finally came to
Mhm.
that. Just to attend the budget meeting was helpful to me. And I'll do the same thing this year to the extent possible. I want to come to those to hear those presentations instead of just having a thing thrown in front of us at the end.
Oh, yeah.
So do we have any, do we want to, do we need to have a motion? When you say, making a motion, so.
And you could make a motion as amended
To
there.
accept the schedule.
I'll make that motion to accept the budget procedure as amended.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion?
To adopt.
I'd like to just, yeah, so we're in the discussion stage of that now. So I would just like to, accept all the dates, but rename it, budget preparation,
Project,
Procedure?
yeah,
Budget
budget procedure
procedure.
guidelines.
procedure guidelines, yeah.
That sounds good.
We don't have to make a motion to do that, do we?
I think you've changed it,
Yeah.
so you can,
Let's just make it,
Yeah.
so can someone make a motion to change the title to guidelines?
I'll do that.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor of changing the name of it?
Aye.
Aye. Done with that one. All those in favor of adopting it?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye, we're done with that one.
okay, good.
I think we made that more difficult than it needed to be.
That's what happens with policy and procedure. It always gets into the minutia.
Okay, now we're at the ambulance billing service, unless I missed something again.
That's correct. So, this is to establish or give permission to open a new bank account. And the purpose of that is, it makes it easier to reconcile. For example, we've already done this for other departments that have a similar revenue stream. And this would just get us to the same thing. So like transfer station or recreation. And as the billing goes out and revenue comes in, it's not just put into a general bank account that then the reconciliation has to be
Yeah,
taken out with everything else that's already in there, vehicle registrations. So that's really the purpose and the benefit.
recognizing the nature of this account, are there any other legal requirements with the account different than the accounts we have for the other departments?
No, I think what would only be different is once we actually create a separate area of the budget, and then the board considers things like creating the budget itself to be a revolving fund or a special revenue fund.
And that's,
But
and
that's
that's
separate.
not relevant to the bank account at all?
That's correct, yeah. Yeah. This is just where the money will be accounted for and reconciled.
So do you want me that
Any other
motion?
questions or comments on that?
I'll probably abstain just because I work for a bank, and if anything was ever come back, or, I mean, I just-
I'll make a motion that we don't use that bank. Don't second that, please.
No, second.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
So I'll make a motion to authorize the treasurer to open an account with a local bank for the deposit of ambulance service revenues.
I will second that. Any more discussion?
Aye.
Aye. 2 and 1 abstention. All right.
And, Mr. Chairman, just to point out, there was a good article today in the Laconia, in the Union Leader about Laconia's ambulance service to end its year in black. This is 1 year after Laconia Fire Department assumed the emergency ambulance service from a local hospital. So it's just a good article. I think it's timely and relevant, and if anybody wants to check it out, it's a good article. I do have one request for a short non-public if you need to. If not, I could fill you.
Do we have something to go into non-public for?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see if there's any public
Yeah,
comment.
Yep, after public comment.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I was doing it throughout the meeting, I forget. So any other public comments?
Yes, I want to ask a question, to Mr. Dorset over there. When you open the bank account, right, who's going to decide what bank you're going to use? I think if you use, Moscow, it's completely interest.
So we have a number of different accounts with different banks. What we usually do, like for example, if it's debt, if we're accumulating debt or we're finding somewhere where we're going to put deposits, then often we'll put it out to bid, and we do a blind bid so that we can't see who's actually giving us the numbers. So yeah, we look and see what the best returns are going to be, and then choose those so that the funds perform
It
best.
should be
with that.
outside the town or in town?
Often banks in town get the shot at it. There are banks out of town are welcome to participate though.
Another thing I want to ask Mr. Chairman, if you're going to have, which you are the people on welfare in this town, okay? They call an ambulance. Do the money they're going to be taken by this account, or they're going to, I don't know, I just asked.
I'm not
If
sure.
it's-
Are they
if
going
it's
to get
somebody-
billed? Is that what you
Yeah,
mean?
if it's somebody's on welfare,
Yeah.
it calls the ambulance for,
Yeah.
or whatever,
Mhm.
They have Medicaid.
who's going to pay that bill?
Well, if they're on welfare, I'm assuming there's Medicaid or whatever other source, but,
Usually welfare.
that's what the billing company handles for us.
The money doesn't gonna be taken out from this account that.
To cover the person's
Yeah,
bill?
Yeah.
I
No.
don't think so. I think if it, I don't think so. It's, we bill.
I think what will likely be established in the process of billing will be probably an annual meeting where the board will sit and consider abatements. So who falls in some kind of criteria where they couldn't pay, and there would probably be an abatement procedure motion that would then relieve the person of that debt.
Or sliding scale or something.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Something. There'll be some kind of a policy in play there for that. So.
Well, the reason I ask, I know a few people that they are kind of, poor.
Yeah, and obviously they need the care.
Yeah, so definitely.
Yeah, we won't deny. Yeah, we won't deny care.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I'd like to request one thing about the project on Crane Street. On that picture that you have here, is my name submitted, or a trust name, Greenlock Trust, and there's a document. That's not my account.
Okay.
But I did present 4 documents to each one of you people that weren't attached. And I would request that those documents are attached
Yeah.
to that trust.
Yep.
Is that appropriate?
Yeah, you mean in your property file or as part of the meeting
It's
minutes?
part of the meeting,
Oh, yeah,
part of the meeting.
we have those. And they, the board has those too,
So
yeah.
I'd like to see
They'll
it
be
as
in-
part of the meeting
They'll be,
documentation.
yes, they'll be in the meeting packet that we.
Well, that's fine.
Right. The documents, the survey, the deed, and I'm not sure.
Maybe we can get them scanned in,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
You know, you should all, I submitted that to 4 different people, so this should be a copy there. And also, could I receive the correspondence that the town has with whoever they're going to look at to see if everything is appropriate? In other words,
I mean, it might be
I should be able to do
attorney-client
that.
privilege.
I
To
should
the
be
extent,
able
to the extent that we can, you will, but there might be things that are attorney-client privilege that we can't.
Attorney-client privilege, I understand.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm talking about documentation that everybody should have,
Yeah.
except for things like that. So I could be made aware of what's happening, what you sent out and asked for somebody to do, and the response, and as long as there's no legal problems in there,
Mhm.
then I will be able to get that.
That's correct.
And would I have to ask for that, or could I get that automatically?
Yeah, you would probably want to, you use email? Or,
I use email.
Yeah, yep, okay, you probably want to email our office and I can give you the information to do
In
that.
other words,
Well, you'll be, but,
Or come by.
but you guys will be
Yeah, we're gonna be
communicating
talking
about
anyways.
this regularly anyways, so.
right, and
Yeah.
I don't want to know how to do this, and,
Yep.
Yep, yeah.
well, I didn't know
Oh, yeah.
that, and something like that.
Yeah, and we'll get you a
An email
concise
address and,
information about whatever the findings are, keep you in the loop through the
Yes.
process.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you, Mr. Greenlaw.
I'm here tonight to, address this Mill Street problem that we have with the street being blocked and people not being able to get to my business. This happens
You should have him
so
identify
much.
himself.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you should identify yourself. Just-
Roger Emerson, I have the roller mechanic shop down on Mill Street. I have so many customers that come in and say, I want to come down the other day and I couldn't get there, the road was blocked. I have the zoning regulations printed out for the brewery back when it was accepted for them to put it in. And a lot of the things that are happening down there, they've gone way overboard with the loading dock that they have is filled right up full of beer and stuff where the delivery trucks can't get in or can't get out and they're loading in the street. One of the things is they're supposed to have 6 parking spots for their employees. That was one of the things in the regulations. Now they've put in a food truck right where their 6 parking spots are supposed to be. People are parking in front of the brewery, especially Friday afternoons to go in and get their beer. And they're not just in getting their beer, they're in the tasting room. 20 minutes, half hour. It's all affecting business to get through that street. I don't know what the answer is to it. I've talked to numerous people and I've gotten no response from them. So here tonight, I have tons of pictures I can show you what's going on. I do have the copy of the zoning, what we did. I'm just wondering if you guys get any directions that I can turn to, or
I'm assuming you started here.
We talk.
we've talked.
Yeah. You know, some of the things, for example, with the situation, I take pictures myself when I see it, or call the police department. I think that sometimes what'll happen, at least happened in my case when I've called, when I've seen it, is by the time the police department comes down, the situation's resolved itself.
I mean, I've got pictures of police officers walking by vehicles in the no parking zone, with a sign right in front of the car, no parking, and it just gets ignored. There was a school bus parked down there with brewery tours for an hour and a half anyway, and I called the police and asked them to move it. It was 15 minutes before they responded, which I understand. They sent the parking attendant down, and he had a talk with her, and she said she was only going to be another half hour. No tickets written, and that's what happens. You know, so the way it is on Mill Street right now, if you use your four-way flashers, you get out of the parking ticket, everything's fine, but it's affecting my business. And I'm just not happy.
So Is it reasonable to request that the police department, be more active in dealing with that?
I would say,
Or the parking?
I would say they are, and I would say one of the things, this is the first I've heard about these two things. Like, I've never heard that before, that the police department would walk by vehicles with flashers or tell somebody it's okay for 30 minutes. Like, I will address that with the police department. I would say that there is a tendency to call many people but not call the police department as soon as something's there. And sometimes people will respond,
I've seen in
they
some-
don't do anything anyways.
Yeah.
I've seen in some
Yeah.
areas where,
Yeah.
in other cities I've been in, where,
Mhm.
for lack of a better term, the signage is much more threatening.
Mm.
Can we have consideration, first of all, of that, to make, some language in the signage that says, I don't know, police take notice, or things like that, just first of all for that, so that new people would be less likely to park where they're not supposed to be parking. But people who are doing it and have been doing it regularly already, there's probably the only way they're gonna stop that is for them to pay the price for doing it. I don't know how else, we can't
No.
put something up to
And
stop
the
that.
police go through quite often, you can't be there all the time.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
The police told me that if I found the road being blocked, to call in. I called them 7 times in 2 days, and now I'm getting a response.
What are your hours of operation, Roger?
I'm 7:30 to 5.
Yeah, and I know that the topics come up at the parking commission meetings, and we have traffic safety meetings where we also explore that. We've there with a town planner, you could really kind of explore some of this stuff. But I think that we've even talked about things like, for example, the upper part of Mill Street on that side, looking at it with the Department of Transportation to see if the entrance the access could be amended to create a two-way only to Roger and potentially Brenda Simon's building. But there's.
But those are
it's
all
a tough-
long-term
it's a-
things.
yeah.
I understand there's disruption when we're doing all that work, and the many business owners are patient. Sometimes they lose patience, but there's that disruption. But now we're at a stage where it's the regular course of business that's causing this trouble, and that's got to be dealt with. And whether it means we got to, I don't know what authority we have, but whether we formally request that the police department is more diligent about that, I don't know what we can do, but I think when it's at the stage where the regular course of business is causing it, we have to be more proactive about what can we do to resolve it. Because those things you're talking about are great to explore,
Right.
but those are going to take a while.
Yeah, I would say so, but I would say also we are extremely proactive. And like I said before, like the accusations of them walking by and not doing something. these
Yeah,
are things
okay,
I've
but
never heard.
it's new. I understand it's new, so
I personally watched tickets being written down there, people being spoken to before they get out of their car to move. I'd say it's something that we need to further explore. Like, for example, I don't know if the zoning officer has potentially explored what implications not conforming to a ZBA conditional.
Right.
That was one of my questions,
Yeah.
especially.
Is there any permits to have that food truck down there that were issued, or anybody requested anything, or is it just stuck in there and nobody's paying attention?
So our zoning is limited. I know that.
Would that fall
has-
under hawkers and peddlers?
I don't think so.
Because it's their own
Yeah.
property.
Yeah, it's their own property.
and that's part of the problem is there's not a lot of teeth in regulations we have right now anyways.
Yeah.
But what about, has there been communication with the, what I'm hearing, I don't know if this is the case, but it's sounding like a lot of the problem is the people going into Shillings and that's,
And they're delivery trucks,
And they're
because they're
delivery
loading, outside the garage
Yeah.
door where the trucks are supposed to back in.
yeah.
There's kegs and kegs of beer.
So
So
have we
we-
communicated directly
Yeah,
with Shillings?
So we've communicated directly with them. From what I understand, they have a property manager at Schilling, and Roger's supposed to. I don't know if they ever gave it to you. You're supposed to have direct access through his
Yeah.
cell phone to be able to
It just
get it.
doesn't work.
No.
It doesn't work. You got one delivery truck sitting there, the driver's off inside, trying to find somebody to unload them, and another delivery truck parks behind. And I know if there was a major problem, that the fire truck would not get through. Ambulance probably,
What about scheduling deliveries? Have they looked at that?
So we have no, here's the thing.
No, but I'm
like-
just saying,
yeah,
have a
right.
conversation with them, because I know when I
Yeah.
worked delivering the
Right.
trucks, we had certain places where we had to be there these hours.
Right.
Can we work something out like that?
Mill Street is complex. There's a lot
I
of delivery
understand.
issues there. We've had private Mill Street owner meetings where we've explored some of that. And I'll tell you from multiple people, including one across the street, I've been told that's just not an option. They're not going to do it. And I would say, Roger, we've worked really hard to try to find a number of good solutions.
Yes, we have, but I knew
And-
this animal was being created when the process started.
And I think
Now I gotta deal with it.
it's not just one property owner, but I'd say one is probably, potential from hearing from Roger, one that does it the most. But I think what it comes down to is we really have limited authority beyond parking enforcement, and we're doing the best that we can. We are proactive. We have a limited police force who's dealing with a drug crisis, but I think they're doing a pretty good job down there. I think that we also have an issue with our zoning, where we have almost no authority over a number of items. One of them is parking, and I know that I did look at this before with the parking, and I think it looks to me legally like even if the zoning board requires certain parking as parameters of their agreement, it's unenforceable legally. There's no action that can be taken because the parking provisions of the zoning document were removed, I think, in 2002. So we're a little hamstring. We definitely will step it up.
Is there
as much
something
as we can, but-
specific that you can think of you like the town manager to explore further that we aren't trying to do already?
Basically, if the brewery could keep their stuff inside the building until they're ready to load, if they could not load in the street and unload in the street, if they could, there's 2 no parking signs right in front of the brewery. Like I said, they go in there to get their beer, and they have the tasting room, and they're in there half hour, 45 minutes sometimes 2 or 3 cars lined up. Now we have a donut shop across the street. They're pulling in there to go and get their donuts made to order. It's chaos. And I run scheduled appointments. When my 10 o'clock appointment calls me at 1:15 and says I couldn't get there, I reschedule. And the police chief said you can have them come down the other way if it's blocked. I don't want to be responsible for a one-way street to tell somebody they can't,
Yeah.
in case something happens. So they kind of got me between rock and a hard spot on that. I just want to bring it to your attention.
No, I understand. I appreciate it. I really do. I'm just trying to think of, we have limited authority.
Right.
Are you thinking of something that we're not doing that we could try?
I guess, full-time police officer down there is the only thing that's going to be, but that's out of the question. So, how can we stop it? Just maybe to get people to be a little more considerate of through traffic.
Are there certain times, Roger, that it's worse than others? So like, during this time frame or that time frame?
Friday afternoon usually for people parking in front of the brewery. But if it's a holiday week or a holiday weekend, it's nuts.
Okay.
I don't work weekends, so I don't know what goes on there. And it doesn't matter because they don't have to get through it. But with the type of business that I have, you can't walk in and get an oil change. You got to bring a car. If you can't get through your car, it's the other coffee shops and stuff. People can walk down there.
Right.
So that's the part I got to address. To get there.
Delivery schedule. Do you see a trend in that as an issue?
As far as
Is there a set schedule that you see? To Perry's question.
they get deliveries at any time, depending on what they order, depending on how much they make to be able to pick up. But I have parts coming in all day long. I have tires coming in. I have room in my lot that they get off the street. They don't block it. I just try to get everybody else to be able to consider it. Just keep the business rolling.
Just thinking during high traffic times, maybe we could do something, ramp it up. I don't know.
And it's almost, do we need to have an have education with the staff there, because when you're in there, that you can see if people are parking or not. Maybe it's a discussion of,
Can't
you know,
park
you
here.
need, the staff needs to know that they need to direct the customers to park elsewhere.
And I
The
think-
problem is, all of these things require just the you know, the cooperation of the business, because we don't really have authority to do stuff, and even with the best intentions, sometimes that doesn't happen. It's,
Yeah.
you know, I tend to want to try to find a solution that we can
Right.
implement, but boy, it's,
Yeah,
Tough one.
I think that exploring this more and thinking about like our traffic ordinance and thinking about like one of the things we tried to do a few years back was to eliminate parking on Mill Street. But maybe there's other things that could be considered too, like, you know, regulation of deliveries. Maybe there's something, you know, require no delivery zone. I don't
has
know.
that been, has any of those types of issues, are they part of the report, the final report that's supposed to be coming to us with the parking study?
I'd have to go back and look. I know that they looked at Mill Street pretty extensively, but I'd have to go back and
I
look
have
at the
that
draft.
report.
Do you remember if they addressed that?
Not really. It's- You know, they're just talking about unutilized parking
Right.
type stuff, but it's not anything about deliveries and that type of thing.
You know, one thing that the town has done is created a delivery space up on Porter Street, and I do see, and I don't know the level of you know, difficulty or whatever it might. Maybe there's a fork truck that can't get up the hill, but there is a delivery zone specifically for tractor trailers on Porter Street, and I do see deliveries happening all over town with people for hand trucking and other things all the way down Main Street. So I don't know if that's something to educate on.
Well,
Yeah, I guess, you know, I know it's not very comforting. We don't have any hard and fast answers for you, but I think there's a recognition of the issue, and we're gonna just try to find ways to mitigate the problem. That's all we can say right now.
Yeah, and then we'll talk more. I don't know if we want to try to get together with Milton chief, local business owners, and just kind of like we've done in the past, but maybe see if there's some new ideas.
yeah,
You know?
I don't know if any of the other ones notice it as much as I do, because you can walk in and get the services.
That's how I first met you, though. Was you invited me to lunch up at your lot? Because what a great view you got of Mill Street. So, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's only worth something if you can run a business out of it.
Yeah.
It's difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do feel your pain though, Roger, because I have like one tiny parking spot that I use to get to my store. I don't have a back entrance. So, and there are a lot of people that park, and that even though it's posted for
Yeah,
MI
you can
company,
notice signs.
they don't.
Mhm.
So I
I
mean,
have to cable my yard at night because
mhm.
it gets filled up with the brewery and everything else that's going on down there. And then somebody has too much to drink, gets a ride home, and then I got to deal with that car in front of my door
Mhm.
till 11 o'clock in the morning. You know, been there, done that, don't want to do it again.
Right.
So, you know, progress is good, but not at the expense of somebody else's business. Been there 25 years, so
Mm.
never had a problem, but all of a sudden, it's there.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It used to be really a street for deliveries, really, and now it's becoming another main street.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So,
Well, thank you for
thank you for
sharing.
your time. And-
Thank you. Sorry we don't have any more concrete for you, but
Well,
we'll
you can just keep in touch with me.
we'll
and let
keep
me
plugging
know
away.
What's going on, or, but like the food truck that's down there, and that, you know, with a big parking problem that we have in Littleton, all of a sudden the stuff there is with the food truck. There's no regulations against it.
Mm.
It's not a permanent structure, which
No.
means that
Wheels are off it, and it's on blocks.
we'll look at
It's
that
got
with
water.
zoning.
You gotta, who regulates that? Who, is it in Mill?
Yeah.
I think we should be,
Okay,
should be aggressively looking at that.
good. Thank you for your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience.
Good night, folks. Thanks for your
Good night, thank
Thanks,
you.
Sam.
I guess we're going, we need to go into,
Yeah, just really brief.
okay,
Got a communication from an attorney.
So, we have to go on
Make a motion.
into under one of these,
Under-
which one?
Reputation.
Oh, the reputation reference.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll go into that. Oh,
I got a question for the chairman.
yep.
As you guys know, I'm involved with the right to know stuff like that. Now, next Saturday, we're gonna work on this. Unfortunately, I see myself that you guys have been going not public session every meeting. What I wanna ask you, if you wanna tell me or not, otherwise I'm gonna find out. Do you guys, when you go to non-public session, do you guys send the notice to the individual that this non-public session is all about? Because the only reason I ask, because when the secretary, she packs everything in an envelope, we cannot open anymore. After 10 days, before 10 days, you can open, and then, it's, do you guys send the notice to the people that you're gonna talk about?
I don't, sometimes we ask them to come to the meeting too. But I don't think every time, no, and I don't know that we're required to send notice.
I think really if there's
I think
action,
you're
if you have
required.
action,
What's that?
if you have action, then you
Right, if
definitely-
we're making action, yeah,
Yeah.
but, right,
I think you require, under the laws,
yeah.
to let's say, if you wanna talk about Rudy Chelsea,
Mhm.
I should know that this non-public session.
Okay, well, you think we're required, but I don't know that we are. I don't know. I think what we're doing, the way we do it, is legal. We haven't been challenged on it. You may think it's not, so you can challenge it, but, yeah, no, I don't
I
know.
wanna say,
It's just sometimes we have them here and sometimes we don't.
the difference between, little town and let's just say back or any other town,
Mhm.
because every town is,
Yeah.
what I make it better.
Well, we have to go under public session on one of these criteria that are stated in the RSA. And as long as it's under those circumstances and we follow that procedure,
Yeah, if it's got no names on, if you've got no names of
yeah.
the individual, I probably, I could go to hall maybe day after tomorrow, after 5 days, right,
Go for the minutes, yeah, right?
Yeah,
Right.
To get the minutes,
Is that what you're saying?
to get the minutes of that, no public session.
non-public session minutes are,
You can if they're unsealed.
I can't
they're
get
unsealed,
unsealed
yeah,
yeah.
before she seals up.
They
Oh.
seal them at the meeting, if they
No.
need to. So you're not gonna see what was in those minutes.
unless they're not sealed.
CRO, right.
No.
Yep.
If they're sealed or if there's minutes, I mean, because if there's no
They
action,
make a decision when
right,
they come out.
yeah.
Right, that's
That will
public.
be in the minutes.
Yes.
But other than that, that's it.
And
You
Rudy.
mean in a public
Mr.
session,
I
it's
guess
not
we'll just go
allowed
through the
to
chairman.
the
They can't
individual
vote.
Mr.
to
Chairman.
get a copy, stuff like that.
That's
That's what
true.
you're-
I don't know if you want to say something about like the number of times, is Littleton's just a very
Yeah,
kind of robust community, and
It's
When they came
definitely-
I mean, oh yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
If they didn't
Got-
seal
we just got a
them,
lot
then
going
we
on.
Just-
wouldn't.
And it'll end up being a longer discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
thank
Thank you.
Thanks, Rudy.
thank you.
So we're going, which one is it? You already looked it up?
That's was it RSA 91A3, comma, what one would you like?
2C,
2C. I'll make a motion that we go into non-public.
or it could be 2. Actually, it could be 2B as well. I mean, probably you could pick or do both.
What would you like, C or D?
D.
He's still recording.
Oh yeah. So we'll do it in D.
And D.
Yeah.
All right.
They haven't made the motion yet. D. We're gonna do D, which is it. Has to do with the acquisition sale.
I'll make a motion that we go into non-public in accordance with RSA 91-A:3, comma 2D.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.